Hey, what's up, guys? This is Aaron Meredith. I'm one of the co-founders of Life Agent Launch, and I've got TJ McBride, who's one of our clients that we've been working with for the last few months now with us. And TJ, first, I just want to thank you for hopping on this call with me.
Of course, man. Honored to be here.
Yeah, sweet, man. First question I have for you, just to give a little background. How long have you been in the insurance industry?
A little bit more than 2 years now. Yeah.
What were you doing prior to insurance?
I never had too steady of a job, but I was doing a lot of food delivery and working I worked at Guitar Center for a bit, just the normal kind of job to job, making ends meet.
Awesome, awesome. So what was attractive about the insurance industry for you? What attracted you to it?
Well, certainly being able to make my own schedule, which I did, I was able to do with the delivery, but I wasn't able to generate, nearly as much income. And, also the skills that I've been able to build while doing this business and the skills that I can use in any future endeavors, in terms of communication and money management and business management and all that type of stuff. So that's what really attracted me about it.
Awesome. Yeah, we've worked with agents who were working in the field, working virtually. So where were you at it, prior to working with us? Were you primarily working in the field or were you working virtually?
So I had actually recently transitioned into virtual before starting with you guys. Sold in the field for probably my first year and I would say year and 10 months. And then started to trickle into some telesales when the areas that I was living in didn't really generate enough leads for me to be able to set enough appointments. And I just spending hours on end in my car without, you know, without much reward. So then I started the telesales and tried to really sharpen my skills on the phone, just dialing mostly CRM leads, whatever I can grab a bunch of and just get as many at bats as possible. And, getting beat up on the phone, but also getting better at the skill set.
Yeah, it's interesting because that was kind of my background. I started in the field and I transitioned over. Did you have a level of a learning curve transitioning from the field to phone sales that you noticed?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was actually lucky to have, as I was in the field, I started to kind of do some telesales whenever it was needed or whenever, if a person couldn't, do an in-person appointment and they requested it to be a telesale, I was able to practice a little bit then. So I kind of had an outline to start with. But yeah, I would say there was, I would say 2, 3, 4 weeks to where I was making sales, but it wasn't steady. It was kind of like when I first started in the field, it was like you're stumbling over some sales and, then you're getting better as you go, but wasn't able to scale in the first probably month.
Now, I've had some mixed responses with this. I'm just curious as far as where you're coming from. If you gave an immediate advice to an agent that's in the field that's looking to transition virtually, would you recommend a hybrid approach where they're still working in the field and they're selling over the phone? Or would you recommend that this person just goes in all in 100% on virtual? I'm just curious to see where your thought is there.
I would say do it. So I would say start with a hybrid, maybe for 1 to 2 to 3 weeks. But have a plan to taper off completely into telesales. I wouldn't have hybrid be your end goal. I would have your end goal be to completely transition over, and have like maybe a 2 week period or 3 week where you're still doing some in-home to keep that consistency, but then planning to come fully into telesales because you do need to have a lot of practice and a lot of repetition in order to really be able to start scaling with the phone sales. So I would say have the goal be to get fully into telesales.
So just mindset wise, be prepared to have a little struggles transitioning from field to phone with the understanding that you want to eventually go all in on virtual.
For sure. Yeah.
And that's my kind of train of thought really is I'm a big believer of burn the ship. I don't give myself an opportunity. I think when I made that transition, I was spending like $2,000 a week on drops for mortgage protection mailers, and I just told my vendors like I'm done, like stop the drops. and that really kind of forced my hand. But I still did run a hybrid approach as my mailers started to kind of trickle off. But that's the logic that I approach with. I started hybrid, and then I gave myself like a deadline to transition over to virtual.
Yep.
Same line. All right, so let's kind of get into, as far as your primary source of leads prior to working with us. Where were you generating and getting your leads from?
When I was in the field, I was running a lot of, final expense, like from the CRM, that 1, 2, and 3 months. And then I started getting my own campaigns and running all those final expense mailers. Then when I transitioned into telesales, it was mostly just 1, 2, 3 month internet leads and ethos leads and beneficiary leads, and just kind of whatever I could get my hands on. But like I said, get as many leads as possible, which it was starting to get really tiresome, getting 200 leads a day to try to squeeze out 1 or 2 sales, and having a bunch of leads in the pipeline, knowing that there's more sales in there, but not having nearly enough time to reach out to them. So I knew it wasn't sustainable, but it was working at the time.
Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about like what life was like working those leads, in terms of like dialing them, their level of intent, exclusivity. What was the overall feel, dialing a CRM aged, cheaper lead at that time?
A lot less presentations. It was a lot more getting hung up on at the beginning of every single call, as if nobody knows about the form that they had quote unquote filled out, or this wasn't me that filled it out. Getting the objections right as you get on the phone, and then maybe squeezing out 2 to 3 presentations, 4 presentations a day, and 1 or 2 sales, and really having to hunt down what you kill, and for lack of a better term. And it was like I said, it was working. It was a good way to sharpen my skills, but at the end of the day, it was certainly not sustainable for my mental health or for my business.
So it worked at the time, but you saw kind of the writing on the wall that this was not something that you could sustain for a long period of time.
100%, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's get into like numbers. So as far as your overall spend on average each month, what were you typically spending? What would your CRM spend? What was that like looking like monthly?
Yeah, I would say on average it was about 6,000. I would usually do about 1,500 a week. Sometimes it was even higher. I would always try to make sure I hit my numbers, and so if I didn't, I would obviously spend more, which it's a lot less profitable.
So you'd have a day where like you go in, you buy 150 leads, 200 leads. You think you're set up for a good dial day. You're hit with a bunch of different blanks, and then you got to go back into the pool and buy another 100 days like that.
Yeah, very often, and very yeah.
Been there, done that. I think there's a lot of agents that can sympathize, especially those agents that are familiar with buying leads.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that can be a little frustrating where, you got 200 leads and it doesn't net you a lot. You got to go back into the pool and buy another 100, 200.
Exactly.
So if you're spending, $6,000 on average, let's call that, what was the average number of leads that you'd be getting from that 6,000 spent?
I was probably getting about 1,000 leads, 1,000 leads per week, just because the leads were so cheap. Obviously you get what you pay for. So the leads were really cheap. I was probably getting about 1,000 a week.
Okay. 1,000 leads. And yeah. What was the 1,000 leads, what would that usually turn into average AP? So submit, approved, business.
I would say 7 to 10K.
Okay. About 30 grand each month.
About 30 grand each month. Yeah.
All right. And then in terms of persistency, right? Because that's a big thing. A lot of people don't talk about that, is chargebacks, right? In the industry, you talk about your submit numbers and you talk about how much money you write and you deposit, but if a percentage of it charges back, that obviously cuts into your bottom line. What would you say total persistency was on running those CRM leads?
When I switched it down into telesales, it was usually at like, from 65 to 70% persistency.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if you would write 30 grand, really you have about 20 grand in business that's sticky.
Yes, exactly.
And I think to me, I mean, that's a big number that a lot of people don't express, because you
Yeah,
see all these agents that are writing 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 grand. My question is, how much of that of that sticks, right? If
exactly.
you're 50%, you're writing 100 grand, you're not writing 100 grand, you're writing 50 grand, right?
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Okay. So as far as, talk to me about this. I mean, it seemed like from the outside, right? If I were to poll 100 agents making 30 grand and submit, not a lot of agents are doing that. It seems like you're doing pretty well. I mean, what motivated you to, reach out to us and seek an alternative lead source? I mean, what was your big motivation?
Well, I had just been introduced to a couple different, let's say, people, and options to where I saw people talk about, if you're buying a lead, you should know exactly where that lead came from, and you should know what the client saw to fill out that lead. And besides mailers, I had never seen that in my life. I had never seen what a client had to fill out in order to, trigger an internet lead or any of these other leads that I've ever received. I've never seen what they had to fill out, and it's always been confusing. So once I got introduced to that idea, I had my mind absolutely set on, okay, like, I'm not going to spend my money somewhere where the people who I'm giving my money to can't be upfront with how that lead is generated.
So you wanted a little bit more behind the scenes involvement, where you knew what the client was seeing, you knew how they were being marketed to, so that would improve your contact rate and communication with them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Transparency, right?
Yep.
And I think that is probably the most important thing from purchasing leads that any agent could look at is, what is the message that your person is seeing? Because a lead is not just a lead, is not just a lead, is not just a lead. That is a fallacy. That's a myth. And anybody that says that, I can disprove that 10 times over, because I can go and make a final expense lead for $2, and I can make a final expense lead for $10. I can also make one for 50. The messaging that person sees, each person will see a different message in a different level of intent. And the intent, to me, is more important than just the person's phone number, their name, email address.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? Because my time matters. If I'm calling, one agent or one contact and one lead that thinks that this is free, that thinks this is about, Medicare and health insurance, and I'm calling about final expense insurance, that's going to make for a long dial day if all of my leads are seeing that, right? So I think that's a big piece. So talk to me about, you've been with us for a little over 3 months now.
Yeah.
How has your overall experience been working with us the last 3 months?
It's been amazing. It's like it's honestly life-changing, and like the first week I went hard on these leads. I think I wrote like 25K the first week, and it just hasn't slowed down. My output has certainly slowed down, but the reliability of the leads, I haven't seen one one time where it's slowed down. It's been reliable every week. Even if I'm not outbound dialing as much, I'll still stumble across, somebody who books an appointment or calls me on the inbound, and, sales are consistent. They'll start falling into my lap. And then if I do really want to crank it up during the week, I'll put a little extra in my lead spend, and I'll put a little extra dial time in, and, I can really guarantee how much I'm going to make. Not guarantee, but pretty closely, predict how much I'm going to make. And so it's been a lot less stressful, and a lot more trustworthy.
So as an agent, you would say your quality of life has improved.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the trap that we can fall into. Obviously, being our own boss, we get caught up in, I had a really good month, I had a really good week. I can kind of take my foot off the gas pedal. Now, if you're running in the field, or you're running, non-reliable leads, that can really come back to bite you. But if you obviously have a consistent lead source, and not going and saying that your work ethic should fluctuate, but we're human, right?
Right.
You're going to run into spurts where your just motivation is not there, but you can always come back to the well and always come back and feed yourself, right? You're never going to run into a situation where if you don't want to put the pedal to the metal, you don't want to buckle down, bite your teeth on your mousetrap.
Yeah.
You want to chill, you can do that, right? Awesome. So as far as, I want to kind of get into data with working with us, and I do have all the, obviously, your numbers and everything that you spent. So your overall spend with us is about what you were spending with your other lead source. You're about $6,000 a month. All in is what your total is. So you haven't changed your outlay. You haven't changed your, how much money you're spending. You're spending the same amount. Quality of life, you've already said, has gone up. It's improved, right? Your ability to be able to write insurance has probably gotten a little bit easier as far as the conversations that you're having with people. And I will say that your total leads are less. So last month you had 630 leads that we generated for you, right? So from that 6,630. So if you look at that number in comparison, the 6K you spent in CRM leads versus the 6K you spent with our leads, what would you say the biggest difference in the lead quality has been?
The biggest difference is there's actually a bunch of big differences. So the one of them is when I'm dialing these people, very rarely am I ever getting I didn't fill that out, or or I'm not getting hung up on right away. Like, of course you're going to get objections. Of course people might not be ready at that time, but 99% of the people that I call and actually get a hold of are they understand that they filled it out, and either they're ready to buy insurance, they're ready to at least listen to what you have to say, they can be sold, or maybe sometimes they're just not really that interested and they just filled it out, but that's very rare. So the response from the client is a lot higher. There's a lot less dead numbers. And then on the other end of things, there's also the system that's in place that drips to the clients, that makes it so that it's not just reliant on how many, me making 600 to 1,000 dials a day, or else, I'm not going to hit my numbers. It's more reliant on just making sure that I'm keeping up with the CRM, seeing which clients responded to the automated text messages that I don't even have to think about. People will book appointments on my calendar, and it feels like instead of running around chasing clients around, it's more so the clients are coming to me, and I just have to practice the skills that I've already built.
And you're getting inbound calls as well. You're getting people calling you.
Inbound calls, booked appointments, and then when
Yeah. So you were saying, I lost
okay.
you at, you got inbound calls, booked appointments, and I kind of lost you at the rest of what you were saying.
Yeah, and then when I'm making outbound calls, the clients are a lot nicer. They understand what they filled out, and it's not a game of trying to convince them that they filled out the form. It's just a matter of kind of walking them through the process of what program is going to be best for them.
Awesome. All right, so let's get to the nitty gritty. You spent $6,000, same as what you were spending before. You got less leads, but what was your total AP? Let's just go last month. What was your total AP?
Last month, mind you, I did travel for a week, but I think it was 36.
Okay.
Last month.
And then average is about, would you say about 40 without
About
travel?
40, yeah. The first 2 months I did about 50. So I would say, yeah, my average with these leads is about 40, 45.
Okay. All right. So in terms of, if we were to look at the numbers, right? And I'm a big ROI guy. I'm a big, I don't care what you're writing. I care what you're keeping, care what's coming into your bank account. What can you rely on to pay your bills each month? Because if you're not keeping your business and your expenses are so high and it's eating to your profit, it's really not impressive. So I just crunched your numbers, and it looks like, just from what you were at before, your ROI was about 250%. So really good return on investment. And that's why I love insurance, because even if you've got a flawed process, you can still make a lot of money in this industry. So you were spending $6,000 to make about net 15,000. If we take out your persistency for chargebacks and we take out your overall cost in lead spend, you're about 15,000 net from 6,000 in spend, about 250% ROI. Same spend here with us. We take out everything in terms of your chargebacks, 80% in persistency, and we take out your spend. You net your best month or average is about 26,000. So you've increased your total ROI close to 50%, up to 430%. So that's a pretty good in terms of increase in what your output has been from a financial standpoint, but if you would say, is your output work-wise more now or less as far as actual work time?
A lot less. Yeah. So it gives me more space whether a person would want to, take that extra time that they now have, rather than just pounding the phones all day, whether they want to use that time to build a team, whether they want to use that time to spend with their family. You know, not only me, but a lot of the people who I have talked to and put onto these leads, it's been everyone has a little bit less stress in terms of getting those numbers and those clients you know placed into a policy.
So it's overall netting more money, working
Yeah.
less.
Mhm.
Obviously, in terms of your overall experience, you would say it's been to this point, it's been great.
Yeah, you can work less and make the same, or you can work more and make double or triple what you're making before, I think.
Awesome, awesome. I don't want to keep you too long. Last thing, if anybody watching this video, maybe they're on the fence, they're skeptical, they're not sure because maybe they've been burned in the past, maybe they've worked with a lead company before and they've had something similar. They think that's similar set up for them. What would you say, a bit of advice for somebody who's on the fence and not sure if this is a good fit or not?
Well, I mean, to be super simple, I would say go for it, like without a question. Um, I've I've probably put about 10 people onto these leads. I haven't had one single complaint. Everybody has said thank you so much. Like these leads are legit. These leads, the turnaround is amazing. The outreach, the appointment booking, everything's amazing. So, they say the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but it can get a little bit greener. And to improve your quality of life a little bit, to lessen the stress in your day to day and make this more of a steady job rather than a roller coaster, I would say take the chance. Plus, it's not like they're crazy expensive. It's not like you're spending more than you would spend anywhere else, really.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we broke that down. Your spend is the same as what your spend was before.
Yep.
You got all this extra stuff, all these extra bells and whistles. But no, TJ, I do appreciate your time, man. I know, I took some of your time up here, and I know you got to go sell insurance right now. But thank you for your time. Keep crushing it, man. Really pumped and fired up that you're having success, and just want to thank you for who you have sent our way to date. But thank you, man.
Appreciate you, Aaron.